Hello folks, welcome to some more Diablo 3 action here. Doing some more with the Demon Hunter. This time I'm trying to do the Greater Rift 55 with a Shadow's Mantle. That's the name of the set, right? Yes, the Shadow's Mantle set. Just to go over this real quickly, again, for anyone out of the loop, the Season's Journey requires you for the final stage to get 3 conquests. I already have 2 conquests. The final conquest that seems most like something I would want to actually do is to get, let's see, what is the name of the thing? Ears of War. Reach Greater Rift level 55 solo with bonuses of 6 of the following class sets. I've already done it with Marauder and my main Unhallowed Essence. Now I'm trying with the Shadow's Mantle, and I honestly have not even double checked to make sure that that is an option here. Yeah, there we go. Shadow's Mantle. So, I'm going to be honest. Obviously I've used this set some, and I wasn't too thrilled with the playstyle, so instead of trying to fiddle around, I looked online at some builds and I did not find very many, and the ones that did, many of them required some items I didn't have, so I sort of just took a couple of them and threw them together, and it's fine. It's fine. So let's take a look at the Shadow set. So the first thing you'll notice is the 2-piece set. While equipped with a melee weapon, your damage is increased by 600%. What this means is if you're using this set, you're using a melee weapon. Just full stop. That's the end of the story. And since Demon Hunters can't use 2-handed melee weapons, that means you're using a one-hander. And since there's no reason to use a shield instead of a quiver that I can think of, you're going to use a quiver. The 4-piece set gives you every rune of Shadow Power, and Shadow Power lasts forever. Quickly, let's take a look at Shadow Power. Now, base, this costs 14 discipline, but for 5 seconds you gain 26,821 life per hit. Well, that's pretty good. I mean, that is a considerable amount of life per hit. I think that's about 3 times more than you get from maxing out Paragon life per hit. I don't remember right offhand. Life per hit gained is increased by 20% of your life per kill. So yeah, that's pretty nice right offhand to have just all the time now. But you also get every rune. So you get slow the movement speed of any enemies within 30 yards by 80% for 5 seconds. Now it's worth noting that this does not become a constant effect when you wear Shadow's Mantle. You still have to activate the rune to get this effect. Activate the skill, that is. So that's something to keep in mind that kind of messes with you the first time you do the set dungeon, if you're not aware of that. Blood Moon, double the total amount of life per hit gained. So it becomes, what's that, 54? No, 53.6? Yeah, that's a lot of life per hit, man. It's a huge chunk of your life per hit. Reduced cost to 8 discipline. Again, just to spawn this, that's helpful. Gloom, reduced damage taken by 35%. That's massive. Oh, that's huge. Huge. So, this already makes Shadow Power amazing. And Shadow Glide, 30% increased movement speed while Shadow Power is active. Worth noting, while from items and Paragon, you're limited to 25% movement speed, you're not limited on skills. So this 30% is just tacked on top of your 25%. So yeah, that's awesome. It's great that we have that all the time now. The 6-piece for the set is Impale deals an additional 40,000 weapon damage to the first enemy hit. Okay, I think I figured out what skill we're going to be using as our main damaging skill. So, for Impale, Ricochet is really probably the best choice, but just because Impale normally throw a knife that impales an enemy for 750% weapon damage. A knife. Uno. Un. Il. One. So, yeah, that's a single target skill. So, Ricochet at least makes it ricochet to 2 additional enemies. So, it gives you some area of effect. So, Ricochet is really probably the best choice here. Grievous Wounds does a thing. Overpenetration. Pierces through all enemies in a straight line. Amazingly enough, that's not as good. Generally speaking. Chemical Burn. See, the thing is, with 40,000% damage increase, you're pretty much just not getting much use out of this. Impact. Again, you know, the stun, that can be helpful on some things, but really Ricochet is just the best option for that. Now, it's important to note that even with a melee weapon, you can use the generator bolus. This doesn't actually require you to use a bow, you see, like most of the other generators do. However, I'm using the Spines of Seething Hatred because this is the most useful sort of quiver I have for this build. So I'm using Chakram. Now, one of the builds I was looking at uses Chakram Boomerang. Honestly, even though Chakram, generally speaking, does a lot more damage than the normal generators, I still, just from all of my use of Chakram, have not really noticed that it adds much. So, Boomerang, because we're running a lightning rune of Impale, and that means they're both getting boosted by any plus lightning skill damage, is fine, honestly. It's, I believe it adds the most, yeah, Serpentine actually adds the most damage for a rune, but Boomerang is fine, and it does come back to you, so, you know, that can be helpful if you can line things up well. Vengeance, Seethe, it's a thing you just do as a demon hunter now. You run the Seethe rune of Vengeance. End of. Vault, I'm running Rattling Roll because of the knocking up, or knocked away and stunned for 1.5 seconds is a crowd control thing. So, even if I can't, it's an extra way to spawn, or to proc Call the Weak and Bane of the Trapped. And it's also just sort of free value, because I'm using the Chain of Shadows that after using Impale, which clearly I'm going to be using a lot, I can vault for free for 2 seconds. So I may as well increase the value of my vaults. Again, Shadow Power we've talked about, and Fan of Knives. Now, this is where a lot of the builds kind of deviate. I wanted to try out this weapon, because I have an ancient one and thought, hey, let's. So, I'm running Fan of Knives. Several other builds are running Wolf Companion here, or like Caltrop's Bait the Trap, March for Death. It's pretty much whatever you can take, and honestly, the dagger is not amazing. I just did a T10 Rift with this build, and I wasn't using Taegeuk. I believe I've mentioned before that I don't like Taegeuk, for honestly a number of reasons, but I really felt like this build needed damage. I may end up having to change over to a Fulminator or something, and then I'll be a little salty that I wasted a gift on this thing, but I figured it was worth a try to see how it would get on. Now, in terms of passives, Call the Weak, it's multiplicative damage. You're very, very unlikely to ever not want to use Call the Weak as a demon hunter. It's amazing. Ambush. When we first hit an opponent, we get 40,000 damage. Making that even more is great. So Ambush kind of, is in line with that. Thrill of the Hunt, again, another way to proc Call the Weak and Bane of the Trapped, just like it is in the UE build. Awareness, honestly, between Shadow Power and I'm running Elusive Ring in the cube. We have a lot of toughness, but still, awareness seems like the way to go. Could be that you can get away with running tactical awareness no higher than we're going. Alright, now in terms of items, full shadow set. Ideally, you'd want critical hit chance and Impale instead of Vitality here, but I'm using what I have. Sorry, folks. Now, the shoulders, generally speaking, you'd want to run cooldown reduction here, but these are really pretty, and as it turned out, I was able to get to 37% cooldown reduction, which is the breakpoint for 100% vengeance uptime with Dawn in the cube, without bothering these. Again, I could roll the life into something else and it would be fine, but I was already rolling something else here, so I figured, hey, I'll keep the cooldown. And also, this is going to be a follower amulet after I'm done with this, so yeah, I figured no reason to roll off cooldown, because cooldown is super good on followers. So yeah, the shoulders, pretty much what you want, other than, like I say, you normally want cooldown. Cooldown here could be Vitality, that would be A-okay, but you definitely want the dual crit, and of course it would be nice to have one of your secondaries be resistance, but so it is. Shadow's Bane, Dexterity, Vitality. I really don't know. Probably All Res is still better than Phantomized damage, but maybe not. I mean, Chain of Shadows. The fourth one, I think this is fine. Regenerate a little extra life. That does a lot when you have a whole bunch of toughness. And even have the resistance as a secondary. Obviously, if we didn't have the resistance as a secondary, we'd rather have All Res as a primary, but hey. Normal pant layout here. Dex, Fit, All Res, Boots. Again, we've got movement speed. I haven't rolled these. If we didn't have a secondary resistance, we'd probably roll movement speed into that thing at All Res. Could roll Impale from 12 to a 15%. That would be pretty nice. But hey, Ess of Johan, this isn't really what you'd want. You could run a Hellfire amulet, get something else. Singled Out is probably really good for this build. If you wanted to run like a Caltrops, Numbing Traps may be pretty strong. You could just run Tactical Advantage. You could also just run a 5 primary affix amulet here. Pretty much anything will do. Wraps. We're running a generator. Chakram is a generator, so yeah, we get that extra toughness. It's 30% instead of 35, but hey. Focus and Restraint. Pretty self-explanatory. Again, we've got the generator, we've got the spender, so we can take advantage of this damage. And again, I feel like the build needs it. I'm using Lord Greenstone's fan as my weapon. Again, you could use something else. You could use the Carlay's Point is, in one of the builds I was looking at, is definitely what people seem to use. That gives back. I think it's 10 to 15 hatred every time Impale hits an enemy for the second time. I believe is how that's phrased. I believe I have one in the cube. Let's take a look. Yeah, 15 hatred if it hits an enemy already impaled. So the second or the third or the fifth or whatever time. This gives increased damage. It goes from 80 to 100% for your next Fan of Knives. It stacks up to 30 times. You can see here our next Fan of Knives will get a 30 times 89%. Awfully nice. Spines of Seething Hatred makes our Chakram a generator. Obviously, this is not a very pretty quiver. Note that we would rather have critical hit chance on this, but it had a socket. I rolled the socket in cooldown reduction. Multi-shot is of no use to us, but if I tried to roll multi-shot away, we'd have like 30 possible things we could roll, and with multi-shot on there, we can't roll another skill, so that reduced the list of possible options down to like 8. So, since I don't really intend to use this again, or play this build much more, that seemed like the way to go. popping back over to the cube. Dawn, again, you just run Dawn as a demon hunter. It's what you do. Visit of Goons, there's not a lot else that does anything for us, and this is a huge boost to our toughness. Again, this gives you the Dark Heart Rune of Vengeance, which is 50% damage reduction. An Elusive Ring, so after we vault, we take 60% reduced damage for 8 seconds, and remember, we get to vault for free after we use Impale. So, let's dial this back and try a 55. I'm almost concerned whether I want to empower it, but yeah, it's just money. Alright, I've got gems, and yeah, Band of the Trapped, Zays, and Taguk, I think, are pretty much for this. Any of these builds are probably going to be the way to go. So let's get in and see how badly this goes. Again, toughness-wise, I think we're going to be A-OK. And again, we have 100% uptime on our Impale. So, yeah, Fan of Knives, especially when you've got the plus 30 stack, does a really good job of just kind of bowling through things. It's pretty awesome, but you see, you come off of cooldown way before you get up to 30 stacks, so it can be sort of tough to keep the damage high, because there's a little bit of a trade-off of whether you want to save it for like a big pack or a damaging elite, or whether you just want to make sure that you're getting a constant damage boost. Whoa! Whoa, Nelly! And of course, this whole time I've been running without Shadow Power, which is not. I would not advise that. It's far from what we would call ideal. But apparently, it is a thing you can do if you are awful and bad and sad making. No, seriously, aren't you sad? Like, you saw me be bad. You sad.
Not ready yet.
Seriously, just hope that everyone can be not bad. It'll make the world a better place. But that's okay, you can still tell them we're bad.
You won't survive that.
I tell myself I'm bad every day. Every day I'm bad, and then... Yeah, let's see. 100% uptime on Vengeance, so that's 100% uptime on our 50% damage reduction, which is, again, a unity, essentially. So, and unities are good, man. People have been happy to run unity for a long time. And by a long time, I mean for like 3 seasons until they came out with Focus and Restraint and COE and so forth. Yeah, there we go. Kind of wish I had moved around and found that to use on the bosses, the elites. But hey, kind of kite these guys together a little bit and help them out. As you can see, I'm not doing great about keeping my Taguk stacks up. Again, if I were a little more familiar with the build, that should be a lot easier. But yeah, I didn't really move out of the way there. It was just it was just luck I didn't get hit. Better lucky than good. That's my life philosophy, man. There are a lot of people who are really skilled. Nothing ever happens good for them, but the lucky ones always got stuff going. Almost died. No big deal. No big deal. Didn't even proc, man. That is the blessing that is having, like, what did I say? It was almost 54,000 life per hit. In fact, it's more than that because I have a good bit of. No, I have Paragon maxed out. That's right. That's right. I'm sure someone out there was like, "Did you max out Goldfind to run a Greater Rift?" And yes, I did. Not today, not right now. It's not what you're watching now, but yeah, I've totally done that in the past. Again, I'm awful, and sometimes I'm not terribly intelligent. So again, I haven't been doing a great job with my take-up stacks, but I think you can kind of get the idea of
Not enough hatred.
of how it can be pretty easy if you're on top of things to keep them going with this build, and it is a considerable damage increase.
Need more time. I am wounded.
And you'll also notice, if you watch carefully, that I'm really good at vaulting and then using Impale, which is not the ideal way to do that. In fact, you'd rather do it the other way entirely if you want awful. Apparently, I guess that's supposed to be Robin Leach. Doesn't sound anything like him, but I can't imagine it's anyone else. And nobody else has that accent. I mean, seriously, it's not British. It's just, it's Robin Leach. It's just the noise that his face makes, and nobody else is in the whole wide world. Which on the one hand is like, but on the other hand, wait, don't you want your face hole to be unique?
I need more hatred to do that.
I just realized I proc somewhere through there. That makes sense. I'm so skilled. So skilled. Don't even notice when I almost die. And yeah, I'm sure you're all like, why did you run into the big deadly poison thing? Because something dumb. Yeah. And sometimes you just have to say, it would be moronic to do this, and then do it anyway. For your own good. For the good of yourself as a person.
Feel my wrath.
Ah, good. Conduit. Good old Winduit.
The Rift Guardian has found
So yeah, so we spawned Cold Snap here. We've got a conduit, so it's going to make this, honestly, rather academic. Yeah, I really expected to be doing more damage to him than this. Huh. Well, that wasn't too bad. Clearly it wasn't as fast as one of the other builds, but this wasn't too terrible. Yeah, there we go. Paint enhancer. So yeah, so I mean, it worked out okay. I do feel like damage is lacking, so I mean, if you wanted to do this build and like be serious about it, you'd probably want to make some changes and adjustments. But I mean, I guess if you want to give this a shot, it looks like this is, you know, pretty okay at GR 55, especially if you were more talented than me. So yeah, that worked better than I thought. Thanks for watching, folks, and I hope the next time I see you, things also go better than I thought. Cheers.